They say that in the Forest of 99 Nights, nothing is a coincidence. Every sound, every shadow, every creature seems to have a greater purpose. And in the middle of all that chaos, there's one being every player fears, but very few truly understand. The owl. Today, I'm going to tell you a theory that has divided the entire community. The one that claims the owl isn't a monster, nor a passive observer, but an ancient guardian. A force trying to purify the forest from the corruption spread by the cultists and the deer over centuries. To understand this, we have to look beyond fear. Because the owl doesn't act like the other beings of the forest. It doesn't attack out of instinct. It doesn't hunt for hunger. It only appears at key moments, as if it were watching, as if it were judging. In many community analyses, players noticed something strange. When the owl appears, the forest falls silent for a few seconds. The sound of the wind changes, the deer's footsteps stop, and a pale mist covers everything. It's not a horror scene. It feels almost like a moment of purification. And right after that, the game often triggers something important. A change in the weather, a revelation, or the encounter with a lost child. Coincidence? Maybe. But many players believe it's a direct clue from the developers, a sign that the owl isn't trying to destroy, but to contain. Now let's talk about the other side. The cultists. They appear in the thickest fog, where the forest feels rotten. Their rituals aren't random. They always surround ancient symbols, marked with crossed-out eyes or broken antlers. The community has interpreted these markings as old sealing runes, primitive ways to imprison an ancient creature deep within the woods. But those seals are broken, and the moment they began to shatter is the same moment the deer appeared. That's where the theory takes shape. According to the community, the deer isn't a natural creature of the forest, but a corrupted manifestation created by the cultists when they shattered the balance, a failed attempt to control the forest's energy that instead gave birth to a monster, a beastly body fused with a human soul, a fusion of suffering, nature, and corruption. And if the deer represents corruption, then the owl represents the antidote. There's a curious pattern that many players have documented. When the owl appears near the deer suddenly stops, almost as if it hesitates or retreats. Its behavior changes, it moves erratically, and sometimes it stops attacking entirely. This doesn't happen with any other enemy. The owl seems to have authority over it, a kind of spiritual weight that dominates the corrupted being. In the oldest community forums, some players claim that the owl existed long before humans, when the forest was still pure. It was the guardian of the natural cycle, a silent watcher meant to maintain the balance between life and death. But when the cultists arrived, they brought rituals that drained that natural energy. They tried to use the owl as a channel for power and unleashed something they couldn't control. The owl, wounded by human manipulation, retreated into the darkness of the forest, watching from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to intervene. And that's where the player comes in. Because in several analyses, players notice that the owl's behavior changes depending on your actions. If you rescue the children, the owl follows you from a distance but never attacks. If you ignore them, or somehow help the cultists, even indirectly, its gaze becomes more aggressive. It appears more often, as if it were warning you that the balance is breaking once again. Some even say that if you finish the game after saving all the children, the owl's sound at the end isn't a screech, but a song. A deep echoing chant, heard when the forest finally falls silent again, as if it were grateful. This leads to a chilling conclusion. The owl doesn't protect the player, it protects the forest. And if you threaten that balance, you become part of the corruption yourself. There's a saying among players who believe this theory: the owl doesn't punish evil, it punishes the break of the cycle. And it makes perfect sense. In every cycle, humans arrive. They exploit the forest. They try to control what they don't understand, and the owl rises again to restore order, even if that means destroying everything. And what about the deer? It would simply be the consequence. The physical embodiment of humanity's damage. A deformed spirit fed by the cult's rituals. a creature that the owl must purify. Every time the cycle starts anew. That's why the game is called 99 Nights in the Forest. Not because it's about 99 days of survival, but because each night represents the forest's attempt to heal. Each sunrise, a small victory of light over decay. And every time you survive, you unknowingly help the owl restore balance. But here's the most chilling part. If you survive all 99 nights, the owl doesn't attack you. It just watches. And then it disappears. No music, no credits. Just silence, and a final blink in the darkness. Two enormous eyes, slowly closing. The community says that's the true ending. The moment when the owl accepts that the cycle has ended, for now. Because when balance breaks again, when another human enters the forest, the owl will awaken once more, and the story will begin again. If you enjoyed this community theory, leave your own down in the comments. And if it's solid enough, I might explore it in the next video. Until next time.